Another tool that we talked about creating landform or manipulating landform in SketchUp was the Artisan Organic Tool Set. To use the Artisan tool set, we first need to create a surface. Not just a face, but a surface. And to create that surface, we're using soapskin. We do want to create enough divisions in here where the Artisan brush or the sculpt brush will work. I believe we use 60 in class. 60 is a pretty good number for a uniform surface. Choose Enter. Let this generate its surface. Do not click anywhere when this is creating the surface, otherwise it could crash. So we'll just go ahead and let it generate its thing. You can't orbit around and look at it, but do not actually click on another tool. So we're watching this to where it finishes. This looks like it's now finished. I will click on the selection tool. I can then choose this surface. Remember, when soapskin creates a surface, it creates that surface on top of the face that was below it. So it's non-destructive in that way, but we don't want that twinkling interference of that surface, particularly if we end up wanting to sculpt concaved surfaces. I'm going to cut that, select the face, delete that out, edit, paste in place. Now I have a sculpted or a surface, soapskin surface inside there without the conflict. I'm also going to make sure that this is facing up, so I'm going to reverse those faces again. I'm not sure what happened on our base file here where all the faces are reversed, but this will allow us now to actually use our Artisan tools. Again, I'll stay inside this group. I don't want everything selected. In fact, I want nothing selected. I can also smooth this surface. I'm going to right-click, soften, smoothen edges. I'll leave those things turned on. So it's now a nice, very nice smooth surface. We see some of the edging details here, but that's okay. Now turn on the hidden geometry. When I have the hidden geometry on, I can now use, well, you can use it without it, but it's nicer to see what's happening with the surface with the Artisan tool brushes. We only talked about a couple tools in Artisan. The first thing we're going to use is the sculpt brush, but before I use the sculpt brush, I'm going to go and check on my settings here, and we want the auto smooth sculpt to be on. Hit OK. The other thing we want to do is to create a crease this edge. If I don't crease this edge and I use the sculpt tool, and remember the sculpt tool use the arrow keys up and down to choose the when I create my surface and it's auto smoothing down. If I were to go over the edge, you can see the edge is tearing up. I don't want this edge tearing up. I want this edge to stay right at that base. So I'm just going to undo all that. And before I start sculpting this, I'm going to use a couple tools in the Artisan tool, and that is, or a couple settings, and that is to crease those edges. So I'll triple click on that, create that whole, select that whole surface, go under the Tools menu, go to Artisan, and say Crease Selection. And we're going to crease both the boundary edges and the bounding vertices. 316 edges creased. Go back in that tool again. So again, we're using both. When we do the crease tool, we're creasing both bounding edges and bounding vertices by going in this tool twice. Okay. Now that we have that selected or set, we can use our sculpt tool, and you'll notice here the sculpt tool will not pull that surface up. It will not pull that surface on that edge. Now, I actually went really close to the edge here, which made kind of a irregular face. But we can go in here, choosing our arrow up. The higher the arrow, the stronger the landform is. You really don't want that to be so large. So by using a smaller setting, we're able to be a little bit more fluid, and we could build that up a little bit more artistically, for lack of a better word, and not with such brute force. Once it's up, we can also right-click on this tool, and we have Sculpt, and we can also use Smooth in that tool. So if I were to smooth it, I can smooth it down. So if I were to make that too big of a shape, I can go there and smooth those down. And so that's it. We just wanted you to go in here with the sculpt tool. I'm going to right click, choose back to sculpt. And we're able to create that form in there. I actually went that too big. And create a landform within here. You can of course go the other direction. Actually depresses it. We're not creating this landform, or this landscape does not have this type of landform existing. In fact, it's more of a level ridge like you see in the center here. But we're allowing you to have the artistic freedom to create whatever landform you want in these areas for this exercise. Again, I'm going a little bit too rough. Smooth it down. Another point I didn't mention, you can increase your brush width with the left and right arrow keys. So if I want to sculpt it with a bigger brush, I can go in there, pull this thing down. Just make a nice landform. Just an undulating landform. We did say you can get started if you want. You can get started using the soap skin and inflate that surface first. So if I have a large area and I want to create the soap skin first to create that art, then use the Artisan tool. I mean, that is the soap bubble, then create the Artisan tool. That's acceptable too. In fact, it's probably desirable to do it this way. So again, I'll create that soap skin. I'll use 60 as my divisions. Choose enter. Let that create its this surface. Watching this tick. In fact, it's done. Choose that surface again, cut it, select my face, edit, paste in place, reverse that face so it's in the right direction, and I'll go outside of this group, select the group, use my bubble. I'll go ahead and type in my 20. Let this inflate. Probably too much. Choose 10. Let it go back down. I actually want a little bit lower than that. Maybe I want this to be 8. So what just happened is it created this surface as a starting point. Choose my selection tool to end the command, triple click on it again, and go under my Artisan tools, crease those edges, crease selection, boundary edges, hit OK, and do the same thing with my vertices. Once I have that created, deselect that face again. I did soften smoothing those, so I'll go ahead and do that too. Good. We have some profiles showing up here. We can change that in our styles. I don't need to go into that right now, but I'll go back in the sculpt tool, pull this thing down, make the brush smaller, and you can go in there and increase or decrease the landform however you see fit. So it just gives us a starting point in this piece. I think this one's a little bit too high. Now we don't have an application in this assignment to do this, but we can also use our tools, this Artisan tool, to make selections. So if I go in here and use my select brush and select a certain area, I can then force that area to be level. So if I were to click on that, choose on my planar, make planar, and choose my XY, hit OK, I've now made that area perfectly level. This assignment does not ask us to do that. We have no need to make that area level, but that's one nice tool in the Artisan tools that we can go ahead and do that. The other thing we can do with that selection tool, maybe we have a lot more detail in this area. I can do that same selection tool. I can subdivide that area, maybe make more detail within this area. And so that gives me more capabilities with the sculpt tool. Oops, I have a selection turned on. You can see here, I'm able to do more refinements and make that smaller in this area, where this area would be the full or larger areas. So I can make a little bit more subtle adjustments, not just subtle adjustments, smaller adjustments when I subdivide that. It's a really good point about Artisan, is that we can have different divisions in this, where we have larger polygons and smaller polygons based on the level of detail that we have in our landforms.